Everyone. Welcome to our Inner Circle Workshop, May 2026 edition. My name is Brad Gotto. I'm your host today. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Fiat Wealth Management. And I was thinking about this before we started this Inner Circle Workshop this morning. My previous business partner and I, if you've been around for any length of time, Matt Stahl, started doing these Inner Circle Workshops, I think in 2019. And so we're in year 7 of doing this. And so done a lot of them. But if you know me at all, you know that education is one of my favorite things to do. And I think that education is one of the most powerful tools we have in life. And so always love the opportunity to come and provide a little bit of education. And so if this is your first ever Inner Circle Workshop, just know that these are an hour long. So we're going to go from noon till 1 o'clock today. We have a little bit of housekeeping up front. I'll just kind of tell you what's going on here at Fiat. And then we're going to jump in to the education. The way that we do the education on the Inner Circle Workshop is through what we call a fun and friendly quiz. Now, the word quiz has a negative connotation. I'm not going to put you guys on the spot. The answers are not attached to your name. They come in as a group. But we're going to take a quiz together. It's a 10-question quiz. The questions are all related to the educational content for today. And then we're just going to walk through that quiz together, question by question, give you the correct answer, and then just talk a little bit more about why that is the correct answer and maybe some other ancillary information on that topic. And so we try to do it to keep it a little bit light, and it kind of breaks up the content a little bit. If you were just going to sit there and listen to me talk for the next hour, I assure you it would get quite boring. And so it's our way of breaking up the content. If you're a returning guest of our Inner Circle Workshop, welcome back. We have a very consistent crowd of you that attends almost every Inner Circle Workshop we do. We appreciate you and hope you value the education that you get today. So, enough of the housekeeping. Technology. The last time, this is a new platform for us. This is the second time we've done an Inner Circle Workshop on this Riverside platform. One of the things that came up in the first time that we used it was when we bring up the fun and friendly quiz, we had some people make the comment rather, that they couldn't see all of the quiz questions. Just know that in order for you to see all of the questions, you do have to scroll down to continue to get to the next questions. There should be 10 questions for you to answer today. Also, housekeeping from a technology perspective, there's a chat function down in the bottom of your screen. You should see a little button that says chat. Do me a favor, click on that button. And if you can see me and you can hear me, go ahead and jump into the chat and say hello. And let me know that I sound okay and we're not having technology issues on your side of things. And it is May 19th. It's starting to turn, I think, the first day of summer. Hello. I think the first day of summer is soon. If I don't know the exact day. So if one of you listening knows the first day of summer, I just know that we're close. And so what I would like to know is just what is your favorite summer activity? Again, if you know me well, you'll know that I'm not a winter guy at all. I don't do any winter activities. I'm a big summer guy. In fact, for me, anything above 72 degrees is where I start to really enjoy the weather outside. I would tell you my favorite summer activity in this season of my life is golf. Not because I'm good at golf and not because it's actually my most favorite thing to do, but because it's my most favorite thing to do with my boys, my 16 and 13-year-old boy. My youngest just turned 13 last week. Uh, the three of us golfing together is just a ton of fun. So when you add in the fact that they love to do it and we have fun doing it together, it makes it my favorite summer activity. So, got answers coming in. You guys can see me and hear me. That is great. If you have questions as we work through the content today, this chat function is where you can go to ask those questions. My promise to you is not that I'm going to get to all of your questions during the workshop today. But my promise is that we will get to all of your questions. And so we will follow up with all of you that have questions. If I'm not able to answer them live, my promise is that you'll hear from somebody at Fiat and we will answer your questions. So last housekeeping stuff. Just knowing what's going on at Fiat outside of today's Inner Circle Workshop, just also know that we have some upcoming events. If you've been a part of the Fiat family for any length of time or just kind of have been around us, you'll know that we like to get together and have a good time together. And sometimes there's an agenda and sometimes there's not. Well, the next event coming up is on June 23rd. June 23rd. So mark your calendars. From 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're doing a give back event. Every now and again, when we get together, we love to do it in a way that gives back to our community in some way, shape, or form. And so that give back event is at Feed My Starving Children in Chanhassen. So what we're going to be doing as a Fiat team, and any of you that want to join, you're all invited to attend, is going down to Feed My Starving Children and packing meals. If you're unfamiliar with Feed My Starving Children as a nonprofit organization, it's all about providing food to those that can't provide food for themselves in third world parts of our country. It's a wonderful opportunity to go down there, pack those meals, and use our labor to help them get that out. That's from 5 to 6:30 p.m. on June 23rd. Friends, family, colleagues, they can all come. Kids can come. They just have to be over the age of 5. All right. July 21st. So we go from June to July 21st from 4 to 6 p.m. We are opening up our rooftop deck and having a happy hour. You know, as you guys know, we do these a couple of times a year. You guys know agenda here. It's just to get together, break a little bit of bread, light apps, and have a drink together, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, whatever your prerogative is, and just spend time together. One of the things we want to be intentional about is creating community. A lot of our clients, look alike, talk alike, act alike, and are in similar phases of life and going through similar things. And so anytime we can get them together, just to create, we've got a lot of people that have met at happy hours and become friends outside of Fiat and spend time together. And that's amazing. That's exactly what those are intended for, or just to spend time with your Fiat family. We would love that as well. Last one, August. So we're going all the way through summer here. June, July, now we're into August. August 25th is going to be our next Wine and Wisdom event. If you're unfamiliar, you've never been to a Wine and Wisdom event, this is an opportunity for you to bring a friend or family member or somebody that you care about to a Fiat event and introduce them to who we are and what we do here at Fiat. Said differently, more directly, they're referral events. They're an opportunity for you to introduce us to somebody that you care about. They're pretty laid back. There's no big pitch. I do talk for about 10, 15 minutes on financial stuff, but we usually have one of our good friends, Marcus Hansen, there as well. They're all called Wine and Wisdom. So we're going to do some wine education. He is a sommelier. So we have some wine tasting going on and things of that nature. The last time we did one of these, I think was April. I think it was just last month, and we did it at a. I'm gonna forget the name. Kaylee, you're gonna hate me for this, but it was a pickleball place. So we played pickleball together too. It was pretty fun. So that next one is in August. More details to come on that location, what we're gonna be doing, and all that's gonna look like. We're still dialing some of that in. Last but not least, follow us around on social media if you haven't already. This is a big ask. It means something to us. I know it sounds kind of ridiculous, and a lot of people ask for it. But one of the ways that we can kind of be seen out in the community is through social media and be followed there. And anytime that you want updates on things like, hey, when was that rooftop happy hour again? All that stuff's going to be posted on social media. So we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We have a new YouTube channel that we're putting a ton of content out on. And so you can find us there. All right, we're done with all that. We're going to move into the content. All right, guys, let's jump in to our education for today. We're going to start where we should. Question number one. So, Kaylee, I know you're in the background there somewhere. If you could possibly pull that poll up so that people can see these answers. I'm just going to start reading. So question number one was, you leave a job and still have money sitting in your old 401k. What's typically the biggest risk of simply forgetting about it for the next 15 years? I know this sounds ridiculous. Some of you are probably like, who forgets that they had money for 15 years? Well, a lot of you. Actually, and maybe it's not necessarily that you forgot you even had it, although that absolutely happens. It could just simply be that you left it where it was because it just was the easy way to do it. And so in looking at that, the correct answer for that question, let me see if, there we go. Thanks, Kaylee. Is B. The investments may no longer match your retirement goals or risk level. So B is the correct answer there. There's a couple things I want to say about this. Obviously, 15 years ago, for all of us, whether it's a 401k or otherwise, we all know that your life isn't the same today as it was 15 years ago. So any investment you have, 401k or otherwise, just not looking at something for 15 years and just kind of sticking with what you've always done is probably not a great idea. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be changes. It doesn't necessarily mean that how you were invested or you were doing 15 years ago doesn't still apply today. But at the end of the day, we need to review to see if that's actually the case. One of the obvious things would be if you started in your 30s investing in this 401k, and by the time you're 40 years old, you leave that employer, and then 15 years go by. Well, now you're 55. Well, at 55 years old, maybe you're one of the people that wants to retire at 60. Now you're only 5 years away from retirement. Should you be invested the same way when you started that job at age 30? Probably not. Um, what's crazy, though, to me as well, I look at a lot of old 401k plans, is there's a lot of people sitting in 401k plans that are actually way, way too conservative. You would think it's the opposite. You would think that if I start investing in my 30s, and now in my Brad's hypothetical example, I'm 55 years old, I'm probably too aggressive. What's interesting to me is a lot of 401k plans, people are auto enrolled in. You get a job, and after you go through a waiting period, could be 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, and you're eligible for the 401k plan, it's an auto enrollment. So they just put you in, and whether you want to be in or not. And sometimes the auto enrollment isn't in your own money going in, it could just be money from the employer, and that's the only money that's actually going into the plan. What tends to happen when that's the case is the money does go in, which is great. And it's better that it goes in than not in at all. And the savings is happening versus just not happening. But a lot of times the default setting is it's going into a conservative investment. And a lot of times it's just cash. And so I run into a lot of old plans where we go to look at it and they're like, yeah, I don't know a lot about it. I haven't been at that employer for some period of time. What I do know is it's just not growing very quickly. And with just a simple statement review, we realize that they're just sitting in cash, or they're sitting in a very conservative investment. Because a lot of plans, if you guys think about it, if as a small business owner myself, if I'm setting up a retirement plan for my employees, and I'm doing it as a benefit to them, but I also have to cover my own tail, cover my own butt, right? Well, how do I do that? Well, if I'm going to auto enroll them or have them start somewhere, typically I'm going to start them in a more conservative fashion because I don't want the liability, so to speak, of having them invest too aggressively. Now, if they want to go in and edit and make their investments more aggressive, that's great. But now that it's on them because they made that decision. So being too conservative is one of the things. Another thing to think about as it relates to old plans, you guys, is old plans typically, not always, this is not gospel, typically have higher fee structures and outdated investment options. Here's what I would say about this. If you're a person that drives a 20-year-old car today, great, good for you. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's entirely true that new cars today, 2026, some 2027s are already coming out, uh, have are updated new technology, maybe more gas efficient relative to horsepower and all that other kind of stuff. But they're still cars, but they're materially different than they were 20 years ago. That's also true of investments, whether that's mutual funds, which are typically what are in 401ks. Um, they maybe have an allocation or an investment directive that's just outdated to today. And quite frankly, a lot of mutual funds, you guys, over the last 20 years have gotten cheaper. And so sometimes in these old 401k plans, what we find is they're sitting in funds that, if they thought about it, they would probably never invest in again today based on the way the fund is being managed. Or two, it's far more expensive than a similar fund or a like fund that we can just change out the fund, get a similar investment structure, and pay a lot less. So and then there's just other ancillary things to think about. A lot of times with old 401k plans, people forget how to log in. I mean, if you're in this educational, like if you're here today and you've never forgotten a username or password, you're a better person than me. But if it's an old plan like this, the odds that you remember how to get into something like that can be a problem. Beneficiary designations can become a problem because not only did you not update the investments for 15 years, it could be that you haven't updated beneficiaries. You haven't changed investment allocations like we talked about before. And sometimes some of you forget which company even holds the account. And sometimes the company you worked for sells and now it's a whole new company, and that kind of throws some people off. Um, it is entirely true that there are absolutely people out there. In fact, during the Great Resignation, there were billions of dollars left behind in forgotten retirement accounts. And so it's just important to kind of keep track of these things. So last point I want to make on this before we question number two, and this is a long answer to question number one. Some of these will be much faster, I promise. Uh, But some of these smaller accounts, a lot of times when people leave an employer, maybe you're only there for a year or 2 years, and so you didn't accumulate a significant value inside of that 401k plan. And so sometimes those can get automatically rolled into IRAs or cashed out if the balances are low enough, because your plan has provisions for old employees with smaller balances and what they're going to do with them, because frankly, they don't want the liability of you hanging out in their plan anymore. So, all right, that was a lot. Moving on to question number two. What opportunity might someone miss by keeping their retirement contributions the same after receiving a significant raise at work? The correct answer, Kaylee, if you want to throw it up on the screen, is A, increasing long-term retirement savings while income grows. You guys, we live in America, and in America, we love to increase lifestyle. We're really good at it. What we're really bad at, actually, is decreasing lifestyle. So one of the things you want to do, whether you're in your working years and you're trying to capture pay raises and things like that, or you're retired and you're trying to capture opportunities from a cash flow perspective in retirement, we just want to be cognizant of movements in cash flow. And so anytime you get a pay raise, one of the first things you should do is capture it before it just disappears. We've all had it happen, right? Where more income is coming in the door and you don't do anything proactive about more income coming in the door. And then you kind of look back and you're like, gosh, it's been a year, it's been 2 years since I got that pay raise. I don't really know where that money went. I know I make more money than I did 2 years ago, but I really don't have a lot to show for it. It somehow just kind of got eaten up inside of my lifestyle. And it could be on big things like homes and cars and subscriptions these days, vacations, but a lot of times just smaller stuff. Instead of buying one or two new pairs of shoes a year, maybe now you're buying three or four, going out to eat more, things of that nature. And so one of the first things you should do when you get a pay raise is calculate, what does that mean to me on a monthly basis? And let's just say it's $500 a month. What could or should I be doing with that extra $500 a month that can make a material difference for me down the line? That's called paying yourself first. Pay yourself first and then pay others second. And even small amounts, you guys, can have a massive impact down the line. And so, an example here would be like a 35-year-old increasing their savings by $500 a month. Let's just say they're capturing their whole pay raise. Their pay raise was $6,000 a year. That's $500 a month. Let's just say they decided they're going to maintain lifestyle as is. They're not going to put any of that pay raise into their life, but instead they're going to put it all into their 401k. The $500 a month could potentially add hundreds of thousands of dollars by retirement from age 35 to age 65. Now, if you think about it, that's 30 years of saving. And at $500 a month, $6,000 a year times 30 years, it's only $180,000. Not only, but it's $180,000 of your own deposits. But it ends up being hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even more, depending on what you earn, because of the way compound interest works. Um, I'll end by saying this. Raises are usually a perfect time to kind of revisit traditional versus Roth contributions, HSA funding, taxable savings funding, and debt payoff priorities. And so capturing that as it comes in the door and not just kind of letting it bleed out into lifestyle becomes very important. Question number three. Why do some financial professionals recommend reviewing beneficiaries separately from a will? The correct answer to this question is A. Beneficiary forms on retirement accounts may override instructions in a will. Now, I'm going to start my explanation of this by telling you a story, because this happened very early in my financial advising career. I'm in my 20th year this fall. I will hit my 20 total years in this industry. I think it was November that I started, but I don't really exactly remember. Sometime, actually, it wasn't that late in the year. So soon I'll have been full 20 years in this industry, but I was very green financial advisor. I don't know if I was a year in or maybe a year and a half, or maybe even less. But I remember sitting in front of this couple, pretty well-to-do couple, second marriage for both of them. And it was one of the unfortunate situations where the first marriage for the husband ended really, really badly, and him and his first wife uh, were essentially mortal enemies at this point. And so before he had ever come into our office at the big box firm I was at the time, they had redone all of their estate planning. And as you would assume, everything was now going to go to spouse number two, his new wife. Unfortunately, that gentleman ended up passing away. And as his estate was settling out, one of the things that they realized was he had all these brand new, shiny estate documents, wills and trusts done. He forgot in that estate plan to update one of the beneficiary designations on an old orphaned 401k account. Now, this ties back into question number one. One of the benefits of not leaving old 401k accounts behind is then you tend to not forget about them. They can kind of just get lost in planning. And that's what happened with this particular gentleman, this old 401k plan. The beneficiary designation never got updated. So it still said spouse number one, his ex wife, who he was, like I said, basically mortal enemies with. And at his death, that 401k account went to his ex spouse. Even though both his will and his trust, it was very obvious he wanted everything to go to spouse number two. In that particular instance, the beneficiary designation, just like this question said, uh, overrode or trumped, if you will, that guy's estate documents, his will, and his trust. And so, very important. And the thing about beneficiary designations, you guys, is this is actually one of the easiest ways to leave anything to anybody outside of just pure joint ownership. You know, if my wife and I have a joint checking account and I die today, very simple. She also owns it, so doesn't need legal documents or lawyers or anything to get involved. She still access to the checking account. Now, eventually, she's going to get my name removed because I'm deceased, and so she's going to need a death certificate to do that, but she doesn't need a will, trust, or lawyer or anything. Okay. Outside of that, beneficiary designations are super simple. If I have an IRA or a life insurance contract or an annuity that passes by contractual law, and I have a beneficiary designation listed, which I'm allowed to do in all of those accounts, it's just going to go to the beneficiary. Again, I don't need a will. I don't need a trust. It's just going to go to whoever I have. Now, in a 401k account, like we're talking about today, or life insurance policies for that matter, making sure those are up to date becomes really important. And sometimes the beneficiary should be a legal document. It should be a trust. Sometimes it should be an individual person or multiple people. But making sure that it gets updated is really, really important. Major life events should trigger reviews, if it's a marriage, it's a divorce, it's a death in the family. You guys, I've seen beneficiary designations and I've seen legal documents where everybody listed who's supposed to like step in and has an important role, like an executor or trustee, or is the beneficiary of an account, they're all passed away. The everybody that was listed in the document had predeceased the document that I was reviewing. And I was like, hey, we've got a problem here. You the people that you wanted to act on your behalf at your end of life or at your death to help execute your state, and the people you wanted to give stuff to, they're gone already. So we need to update things. Or just on a positive note, birth of children, grandchildren, things of that nature. I hear it a lot. A lot of people just assume, well, my attorney probably handles all that, don't they? And the answer usually is no. And actually, your attorney doesn't know any of that stuff is happening unless you tell them. And although attorneys are really good at drafting paperwork, executing what needs to be done to make that paperwork legal or funded sometimes doesn't happen. So, good estate planning coordination is going to involve an attorney, an advisor, a CPA. You have to deal with account registrations, retitling, and updating beneficiary designations. And all of that is equally important. All right. Question number 4. Why is it important to carefully decide whether to cash out, roll over, or leave behind an old 401k after changing jobs? The correct answer here is D, all of the above. So let me read these again. A, B, and C. Why is it important to carefully decide whether you're cashing out, rolling over, or leaving behind an old 401k? A is early withdrawals may create taxes and penalties. B is investment options and fees can vary significantly. And C is retirement savings could stay aligned with long-term goals. And the correct answer is all of those things are true and things that we need to be thinking about. So cashing out early, let's just talk about that one first. If you're unfamiliar, it's age 59 and a half. If you cash out of a qualified retirement plan, pre-tax qualified retirement plan, like a 401k early, which is pre 59 and a half, they're going to charge you not only the tax bill that you owe, which is always going to be true, by the way, they're also going to charge you an excess 10%. So if your tax bill is 15%, you're going to get charged 25. Whereas after age 59 and a half, the 10% additional penalty goes away and you just have to pay the tax bill. Obviously, you guys, that's a big deal. And so usually in the vast majority of cases, cashing out early is not a recommendation. Uh, Again, in my 20 years, I can only think of one actually off the top of my head. I'm sure it's happened more than once where it was a recommendation to pull out early out of a retirement account like that, but I can only think one off the top of my head where it made sense. And quite frankly, it was just a massive financial material change in the family, and they were fairly, unfortunately, in a pinch and didn't have any other lines of defense, so to speak, outside of taking on massive amounts of debt, which wasn't going to make sense for the family. Um, so when it comes to cashing out, now when it comes to the other option, which is rolling over into an IRA versus keeping it at your uh, old 401k, or a third option in there that wasn't even mentioned is rolling it not just into an IRA, but rolling it into your new plan. You can take old 401k assets from a previous employer and then put them into the new 401k and have them come together. Now, that's going to depend on what your plan allows for and what that's going to look like at your new employer, but there's sometimes an option. But let's walk through those two options, whether it's bringing it out into an IRA or leaving it into an employer-sponsored plan. There's pros and cons to both. But at the end of the day, understand one of the biggest misconceptions is if I leave a 401k and I go to an IRA, I have to pay taxes. No, you don't. They're both pre-tax accounts. And so the major difference here is a 401k, you're a participant in a plan. My employer, like Fiat, has a 401k. If I'm an employee of Fiat, I'm participating in Fiat's 401k plan. I'm a participant. I don't own the plan or the account. I participate. An IRA, an individual retirement account, I own. And so essentially, I'm leaving the group plan and putting my pre-tax savings in my own account. Now, it could be that making that move is more expensive for you, and the fees and expenses associated with the IRA are more expensive than the 401k. It could be the opposite, where my fees and expenses inside my 401k are more expensive than me going to an IRA. And so we have to keep that in mind. You also have to keep in mind that there are certain rules that exist for 401k plans that don't exist for IRAs. And so, as an example, one of the advantages of a 401k is there's something called the rule of 55 access. And so, if you're one of those people that wants to retire early, and I just gave you the number of age 59 and a half, you now know that if I pull money before 59 and a half, I have a penalty. Except if it's in a 401k, sometimes you can get this rule of 55 access. And instead of it being age 59 and a half, I can have access to the funds at age 55 without paying that 10% penalty. I can't do that in an IRA. Now, is there a lot more rules and regulations to that? Absolutely. And so that's something that we have to be cognizant of. And I don't have time to go into that today. But if you're one of those people that's thinking, gosh, do I stay or do I go? IRA, 401k, and you have dreams or goals of retiring pre 59 and a half, it may make sense to leave some money inside the 401k plan versus moving to an IRA. Um, the other thing goes back to what I talked about before, which is fees and expenses, and understanding that some of these old plans are just really expensive and have very limited investment options. And so, a lot of times, as you guys know, in 401ks, if you've ever been in one, they have an investment lineup of funds for you to pick from. Usually, the average plan has 8 to 10 to 15 different options. Whereas if you go into an IRA, a lot of times the world is your oyster and kind of invest in whatever you want. The last thing I would bring up here is consolidation. I'm a big believer in simplicity. I think that we should all chase simplicity as much as we possibly can. I think the easiest financial plan to build is the one that you're going to stick with, and the one that you're most likely to stick with is the one that's the most simple. And so, one of the things I preach all the time is consolidation and not having money everywhere. I think diversification is important, but I don't think having money at 14 different custodians or four different financial advisors is adding more value than it's causing pain. I think net that's a loss. That's my opinion. I think if we consolidate, it helps simplify investment management and it make things actually all work together. It makes R&D planning easier. It makes dealing with beneficiaries. It makes tax strategy easier. And so one of the things to think about as you kind of are got money kind of everywhere, old employers and things of that nature is, gosh, how much easier would my life be and how much better would my planning be if I could kind of bring it all under the same thought process and have kind of the whole plan moving in the same direction. All right, let's go on to question number 5. Ooh, this is a lot. I'm going to take a drink. Are you guys bored out of your mind yet? Hope not. Um, Let's move on to question number 5. I've only got a couple questions coming in, so hopefully it's just because I'm doing such a good job of explaining everything that y'all are just like crushing it and you don't have any questions. Hopefully it's not because you're just like so tuned out and this is so boring that you're like, man, I can't believe I registered for this event today. Question number 5. Why use both taxable um, and tax advantage accounts? The question was, why might someone intentionally contribute to both taxable and tax advantaged retirement accounts? The correct answer to that question is A, to create more flexibility around retirement income and taxes. You guys, if you've been around fiat for any length of time, you know the answer to this question. Uh, but for those of you that haven't, or maybe this is your first ever inner circle workshop or interaction with fiat, what's really important to understand is that there are three tax buckets that exist in your life: pre-tax money, post-tax money, and tax-free money. All three tax buckets have different implications. It's also important to understand that from an investment standpoint, only almost any investment you want to buy, whether it's a mutual fund that you are particularly in love with, or it's an individual stock like Apple or Nvidia or Netflix, or it's anything else. It can be bought with pre-tax money in plans like 401ks and IRAs. It can be bought with after-tax money, checking account money. I'm going to deploy my checking account money and go buy a stock with it, go buy farmland with it, go buy whatever. And it can be bought in a after-tax, tax-free account like a Roth IRA, where it's after-tax money that goes in, money I've already been taxed on in my checking account. But then in the future, if that asset were to grow, that investment were to grow, I don't owe any tax on the growth. So all three buckets have different tax implications if you actually make money, and sometimes have different implications if the opposite is true and you actually lose money. And so, without getting into the finer details of this, and if this is the first time you're hearing this, I would highly recommend, if you have additional questions, to reach out to Fiat, because this stuff's really important, that you diversify your tax liability the same way you think about diversifying your investment liability. You don't want to pull all of your eggs in the basket of, I think it's better to pay no tax today and deal with all of it later. Or the opposite, putting all your eggs in the basket of, I'm going to pay all my taxes today and save none for later. Or that middle bucket, which is kind of an interesting hybrid bucket, that after tax bucket that has capital gains taxes, not ordinary income taxes. And this may all sound like jargon to you, but if you take anything away from this question, it is this. In the ideal world, if somebody could walk into my office today and they had kind of the perfect setup where it's just like, man, you crushed not only the amount of money to save, because we do focus on that. In fact, we're taught to focus on that. There's studies done every year, articles written every year on how much money you should have to have saved for retirement to be safe and to have enough. And everybody's got a different opinion on that, but there's always opinions on it. What's almost never talked about is, of that pile of money, let's just say you read an article on Yahoo Finance and it says, you need $1 million to be retired safely and to have enough and to live a comfortable life in retirement. Fine. Let's just say they're right. Now, the question that never gets asked is, how much of the $1 million should be in pre-tax accounts, post-tax accounts, and then tax-free accounts? Well, in an ideal world, it's some of each, because then we can kind of curate your tax liability moving forward. And we have a lot of flexibility from a planning perspective. This could be things like, we're trying to avoid tax brackets, we're trying to avoid excess Medicare premiums, we're trying to affect how your Social Security is going to be taxed, Roth conversion planning, you name it. There could be, or how your taxes are going to affect your beneficiaries at your death for your estate planning purposes. There's a lot of reasons why this is really, really important. So don't just think about it from a number perspective. How much money do I need? Or just from the perspective of, how should it be invested in, which stock or which bond or which whatever, but also, what tax bucket should I be saving these dollars in so that I put myself in the best position moving forward? All right, question number 6. What's one major reason people procrastinate estate planning? You guys, the answer is D, all the above. So let me read A, B, and C to you here really quick. A, they assume they're not wealthy enough yet. You guys, I hear this one all the time. B, they think estate planning only applies after retirement. And C, they believe beneficiary forms handle everything automatically. Uh, guys, I'll tell you the number one reason I think people avoid estate planning, and that's because nobody likes to think about or talk about their death. It's not a fun conversation. Let's just call it what it is. Nobody wants to just sit around and contemplate, okay, when I'm gone, I want to make sure that I do all this planning to make sure y'all are taken care of. Now, I don't think there's anybody listening or anybody that's going to watch this in a recording later that doesn't agree with the statement. In an ideal world, if I were to die today, my loved ones and the people that I care about would, one, have the least amount of, you know, pain as it relates to paperwork and decisions to make and all that kind of stuff at my death. I would like to make that as easy as possible. I would like them to pay the least amount of taxes possible. I would like them to wait the least amount of time for the estate to settle. Just all these good things. I would like this to be easy. I don't want to hand a burden off financially, tax wise, paperwork, or just kind of process wise to the people that I care about. We would all agree we want that all to be as easy as possible. In order for that to happen, you got to talk about it. You got to do some planning, because if you don't do any planning, the opposite's going to be true. Um, it can be uncomfortable. It can make things complicated. It can make things more expensive. And so I would tell you this. It is my belief that when you think about kind of four legal documents, when you think about estate planning, there's powers of attorney, healthcare directives, wills, and trusts. Okay. Power of attorney, giving your voice to somebody else when you don't have one because you're physically or mentally incapacitated, and giving somebody else the legal right to make decisions for you, sign checks for you, that kind of stuff. I'm going to give you the power to be me. So think of instances in life where it requires you to do it. It requires your social security number, your signature, your driver's license, whatever it may be. Um, Giving a designee somebody the right to do that. Healthcare directive is you having a voice when you're either physically or mentally incapacitated and don't have a voice, and how you want to be cared for from a healthcare perspective. And this could be simple things like I'm willing to pay for a private room at the hospital, to more complex things like do I want organ donation, or end of life, like life support type big huge decisions that need to be made. Those two documents, everybody listening, I don't care if you're rich or poor, high income, low income, high net worth, low net worth, all of you should have those two documents: powers of attorney, healthcare directives. The third document all of you should have is a will. You guys, all a will is you writing down ahead of time what you want to have legally, what you want to have happen to your stuff, to your estate at your death. Because if you have no legal documents in place, what's going to happen is any account that's not jointly owned or doesn't have a beneficiary designation on it is going to go to court. It's called probate. I call it death court. And at death court, there's going to be a judge, just like there is at every court proceeding, and they're going to say, well, now we have to legally decide what happens to their stuff. Well, there's only two people that can decide that: you or the state in which you live. Well, if you're thinking about it, you're like, well, I'm now passed away in your hypothetical scenario. So how do I decide what happens to my stuff? Well, the only way to do that is to write it down ahead of time. That legal document of you writing it down ahead of time that has legal standing and jurisdiction at death court is called a will. Your will is your voice at estate court, death court, probate, whatever you want to call it, saying, hey, this is what I want to have happen to my stuff. So please make sure that this is where this goes. And this is who I want to, it could be everything from guardianship for minor children to personal effects and personal items to retirement accounts to your house to otherwise. Like, this is what I want to have happen. Those three documents, I think everybody should have: power of attorney, healthcare directive, will. There's a fourth document called a trust. That's much more complicated, and we don't have time to get into that conversation today. I don't think everybody needs a trust. I think trusts are for some people, depending on how you want your estate to pass. If you have questions on trust, or if trust might make sense for your family or something like that, please reach out to us. We can have that conversation. Like I said before, anybody can make something complex. That's easy. It's making something that is actually complex simple again, which is where wisdom is truly found. And sometimes the trust actually adds simplicity, and sometimes the trust actually adds complexity. But it's not for rich people. Okay, estate planning is not for rich people. It's for everybody. Um, it's not just about money. It's about guardianship for children, like I said before. It's about healthcare decisions, like I said before. It's about all the other big decisions, like the power of attorney. It's avoiding family conflict. It's really sad being in this industry and watching a client of ours pass away and watching the family argue, because everything wasn't written down ahead of time, and now they're left to their own devices to figure out what mom or dad might want or the loved one might want. And I'm here to tell you that doesn't always go smashingly. Um, so just something to think about. Question number 7: Which situation is most likely a reason to revisit your retirement or estate plan? Again, the answer is all of the above. So what are the all of the above? Marriage, divorce, and remarriage is A. B is a new child or grandchild. And C is a major career change or retirement. You guys, very quickly on this, that all seems very obvious. You're like, well, duh, Brad, that was a layup question. And you're right, it was. It's D, all the above. But there's two things that can change. You could change, and the rules to the game could change. What do I mean by that? Congress changes the rules to the game. I'll give you a prime example. You're one of those people and you're like, yeah, Brad, none of this stuff has happened to me. I'm married to the same person. I'm not divorced. There's no remarriage. I've got no new children and grandchildren, no major career change, retirement, anything has happened to me. So I'm probably good, even though my documents are maybe 5 or 6 years old or 10 years old. None of that's true. So I should be good. Well, in the last 6 years, Congress has changed the rules of the game as it relates to estate planning twice. They passed a bill, an act called the Secure Act in 2020, changed some of the rules of the game. Not going to get into the details of the rules of the game it changed because it's a big piece of legislation, but it did. And then they passed in 2022, December 2022, the Secure Act 2.0. So they updated more things. And so, long story short, one of the reasons to update your documents might be you. And those are the easy ones to think about. You have major life transitions that can change your taxes or insurance needs, your beneficiary designations, investment timelines, estate wishes, things like that. Um, you have your first grandchild, and that triggers discussions around gifting or 529 plans or trust planning. It could be a marriage or a remarriage. And I'm here to tell you right now that and you shouldn't feel bad about this. I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but if you're one of those people that is in a second marriage, the blended family thing is a big deal. It needs to be very specifically planned for, because very rarely in a blended family situation is it everything goes to one spouse or everything goes to the other spouse, and they're kind of leaving their kids out of it, or don't have difference of opinions of what their kids should get, or want to keep assets separate at death. So the each spouse coming in, that their inheritance goes down to their respective children, blood children, and not the children they married into, kind of situation. um, but again, that other side of it is we just got to keep up with Congress, and sometimes, you guys, that's hard to do if we're just being honest. And so here's what I would tell you. Generally speaking, it's a really good idea at a minimum to review your plan every 3 years. And I'm actually one of those people. My wife and I did update our estate plan about 5 years ago. And I was thinking, gosh, I should probably take my own advice. I need to look at this. And I was thinking in my head, all the excuses that you're giving yourself right now, but nothing in my life has really changed all that much to the point where I think I need to update something. And I'm here to tell you, I looked through the documents, just a quick glance. It didn't even take me 5 minutes. I wasn't even 5 minutes into the review. So it wasn't like a comprehensive review I'd done. And I noticed something in there, that there were some key people listed in my document that shouldn't be in there, because my life has changed. And I was like, oh, shoot, I forgot about that. I actually do immediately need to update these documents because I need to change around some key people, as it relates to my kids and guardianship and things of that nature. And so my wife and I are in the process of that right now. So I'm one of the living examples. Question number 8. What's one common misconception about Roth IRAs? We're jumping from estate planning back into retirement account planning and bopping back and forth, but you can't have one without the other, right? All right. Question number 8. What is one common misconception about Roth IRAs? The correct answer is B, that they automatically outperform 401ks. You guys, a Roth IRA versus an IRA, or Roth 401k versus a traditional 401k, or cross-pollinating a regular 401k pre-tax versus a Roth IRA. There's a lot of misconceptions, but what I'm here to tell you is those are just platforms by which to invest money, and they're going to dictate your tax status of that money. What it does not dictate is investment returns. You know what dictates investment returns? The investments themselves. And so, just to keep it super simple, if you want to invest in Apple stock, and assuming your 401, I'm just obviously making the assumption that your 401ks allow you to invest in whatever you want. Uh, Whether you buy the Apple stock in the 401k, or you buy it in a brokerage account, or you buy it in a Roth IRA, it's going to perform however it performs. What is going to be different is the tax status of that money. And so their Roth IRAs are not better than 401ks. 401ks are not better than Roth IRAs. Roth 401ks are not better than traditional 401ks. It all depends on your family's needs as it relates to taxes and how do you want to deal with your tax liability to the IRS. And I cannot stress how important this is because you guys, the IRS for most of you listening is probably the largest expense you're going to have for the rest of your life. And so if we can deal with the IRS in a way that's as efficient as it can be for your particular family, your set of circumstances, your set of needs, your set of facts, in essence, what we're doing is dealing with the largest expense that you have and dealing with it efficiently. It is the thing to focus on. Not that you shouldn't focus on, gosh, I have a subscription to Netflix and I have a subscription to HBO and I have a subscription to Amazon Prime. Maybe I don't need all three of these subscriptions and I can cancel one and save myself $16.99 a month. Great. That's awesome. But that efficiency as it relates to your subscriptions is never going to make as big of a difference materially as it does with the IRS and your tax liability. So understanding not just that you should be saving money. We all in your working years should be saving money for the short-term cash flow needs and things come up because life just happens, to the long-term stuff and big goals like retirement and everything in between. But where to save it as it relates to taxes becomes really, really, really important. Question number 9. Guys, we're crushing here. It's 12:51. I got 9 minutes left, and we have 2 questions left. I think maybe for the first time ever in our Inner Circle workshop, we're going to be done early. Now, I will also say we never go over. Most visits I have go long, but I've been very good with our Inner Circle workshop, and I'm very proud of that. So, all right, question number 9. Do you want to receive a complimentary wealth.com link to create your estate planning documents? The correct answer is yes. No, I'm just kidding. uh, it, yes or no. Basically, what I want to talk about here is our strategic partnership with this platform called wealth.com. So we have access to this platform. What wealth.com is a online platform. It's a user single sign-on platform where you create a username and password and you log in. And once you get into the platform, it allows you to create powers of attorney, healthcare directives, wills, and a lot of different types of trusts. Not all trusts, okay? If you're sitting out there listening and you're worth $50 million, you need a bunch of irrevocable trust planning done, probably not the right platform. But for most of us, this platform can solve the legal document creation problem some of us have. And so by creating access or by us giving you access to this platform, you're allowed to go out there, create this username and password. And here's why this is so important. The obvious piece of it is some of you don't have these documents and you need them. And one of the things that's holding you back is I don't know where to start, I don't know where to go, or I just don't want to pay a lawyer. I don't want to pay the legal fees it costs to do this. Uh, in all of those instances, wealth.com is going to help you. Okay. Uh, Another reason that I really like the platform is because one of the things we talked about is updating documents and staying on top of this stuff and not just creating legal documents as a set it and forget it. Okay, I've created a document and never have to deal with this again for the rest of my life. Not true. We got to keep these documents up to date. Just like you change the oil in your car regularly, we need to update these documents regularly. Okay, Brad, but that sounds like a painful process. Having to go back to the lawyer, review all the documents, possibly update them, more fees, more time. Um, Once you create the username and password, you can go back into the platform at any point in time, take the most recent iteration of the documents that you have, make the changes that you think or you do need to make, reprint, re-sign, and we've got a new set of documents. And so part of understanding when you need to update those documents is going to be on you because you know what's going on in your life. But the platform will help watch things for you that it can watch and maybe come to you and ping you and say, hey, it's been a while since you've been in here. Maybe send you an email or a note and say, but Congress has changed some laws and I think you should come back and review your documents because they're now out of date. Or because in legal documents, you would have things like your address inside of your legal documents. It's going to watch something like Zillow and say, hey, we just noticed that if this is still your home address, that the home that you have listed as your primary residence that you live in just went up for sale. So are you moving? Because if you're moving, you probably need to update your legal documents. And so it is going to provide a little bit of some assistance as it relates to trying to keep them up to date. But then the other thing I just want to mention about the platform is the other things I'm passionate about is generational planning, because for most of you, you're probably not going to die broke. And in fact, for most of you, that's not your plan. Your plan is to die with assets, and you have thoughts around what you want those assets to do. Said differently, your money's not going to die with you. It has its own life cycle that extends beyond you. And so it's one thing to get all of your stuff buttoned up and get it done really well. And let's just say you've got the perfect estate plan and you don't have any old 401ks hanging out there, any bad beneficiary designations. You got really good will and trust planning done. But if all of that leads to that estate going to your kids, even if that happens as efficiently as it possibly can be, but your kids have done none of this planning, now we're kind of putting it back into a situation or back into the hands of somebody that might be where you stand today. And so using the platform to do multi-generational planning, estate planning, or just overall financial planning becomes important as well. All right, I told you I was going to let you out of here early. We got one question left, and I got 4 minutes left, and this isn't going to take 4 minutes. But this is an interesting question. Which unusual fish found in some Minnesota lakes can survive winters by partially freezing and then thawing back out in the spring? You guys, I can tell you this. I have not evolved. I've lived in Minnesota now for 20 years. Wait, is that right? What is it, 2026? No, 25 years. Holy moly. For 25 years, I have not evolved to the point where I can survive these winters. I do not like winters in Minnesota. But these fish have. The answer is B, the bowfin fish. It says, my notes here say the bowfin are one of the oldest surviving fish species in North America, and can breathe air when oxygen levels in the water get low. I, Unbelievable. It's fish don't have the option to move. We do. uh, and so at some point in my life, I would love to not be here in the Minnesota winters, but right now that's not in the cards. I'm here in the Minnesota winter. So that being said, it's 12:57. I told you I was probably going to get you out of here a couple minutes early, and we're going to do that. Thanks for joining this month's Inner Circle Workshop. I want to close down by saying this, so don't leave just yet. If you learned anything today, I would love to know that, because education is extremely important to me, and I love feedback on our Inner Circle workshops. Number two, if you have additional questions that are not already in the Q&A or that we didn't get to in the Q&A, please shoot us a note before you log off, either in the Q&A, or you can email us at hello@fiatwm.com, and we will get all of your questions answered. We will reach back out to you. And last but not least, if you're one of those people that needs to review existing estate documents or create new estate documents and want access to the wealth.com platform, please let us know. If you answered yes, we're going to see that. Somebody from our firm will be reaching out to you to try to make sure that that happens. But at the end of the day, you guys, this stuff is really important. We focus on the big things like saving money, and it's really good to do that. But we don't deal with some of these smaller issues like making sure that the investment allocation stays up to date, that the fees and expenses associated stay efficient to our family, that the beneficiary designations don't go out of date and go stale, and then put the correct legal documents in place to make sure that if and when something does happen to us, that all the hard-earned money and planning that we've done is extended to our loved ones as efficiently as possible. And it's in all of those areas that we come in. You got to do the hard work of being able to save money and build wealth, obviously. We come in and make that savings as efficient as it can possibly be. With that being said, thanks for joining us for this month's Inner Circle Workshop. Enjoy the rest of your day today, and we will see all of you when we come back for our next Inner Circle Workshop, unless, of course, you're going to join us this summer for either our Give Back event in June, our Rooftop Happy Hour in July, or our Wine and Wisdom in August. Enjoy the rest of your day.